Over in Philadelphia, some change with that offensive staff. The Eagles officially part ways with offensive coordinator Brian Johnson.
So that's why Penn State Blake was smiling this morning.
He was in a very good mood
Very good mood.
We got to hear
he skipped. I saw him skipping.
He's giggling as we speak.
He's got an ear-to-ear grin on his face right now. We got to hear from Nick Sirianni on making the change at offensive coordinator.
To me, we got a little bit stale on offense by the end, at the end of the year, and these ideas and this new person coming in is meant to, take away the staleness and add the value of what they're adding to the offense.
Nick, just for clarification, though, it'll be your scheme and you'll have final authority on what is run.
Yeah, it's our scheme. It will be our scheme of what we're doing, and so again, I don't know exactly what that will look like yet. Right, we're bringing in a guy to bring in new ideas, a guy who has a vision, a guy who's going to call the plays, a guy who's going to be able to coach the quarterback in the same sense there.
That was Nick Sirianni, of course, the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. He kind of walked himself into a trap there. Did you notice that?
I did. Really good question there. Because
Great follow-up.
Nick Sirianni, of course, prior to coming to Philadelphia, the offensive coordinator of the Colts, he's an offensive-minded coach. And so he's just like, our offense got stale there, towards the end of the year. And they're like, well, but it's still going to be your scheme, right? You'll still have final say, right? He's just like, well, it's going to be our scheme.
Oh, yeah.
Our scheme.
He rolled the bus over somebody that doesn't even work there yet.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So he's just throwing it out there beforehand.
Just like,
building it in.
Yeah,
if it works really well, I made a great hire in my scheme. If it doesn't work again, it got stale.
I mean, exactly. By the way, this is the kind of strategy that I employ here at the happy hour.
Right.
If you've ever noticed there, just in terms of, if something goes wrong, I throw Penn State Blake or producer Steven under the bus, occasionally Alexa, whatever. Just, right, exactly.
There's no bounds.
No bounds.
He let you know,
it's
too.
It's our show.
He said somebody to call the plays. Yeah. That's what he said.
And to work with a quarterback.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem like a very appealing job, even though there's a lot of talent there. Because, there was documented examples of when Brian Johnson would call a play and Nick Sirianni would be like, no. So, but you fired anyway.
Yeah, right.
What's the win?
It was interesting, too, because Brian Johnson had known Jalen Hurts since he was 5 years old, and so he's been with him a while. The Eagles did interview the Texans quarterback coach, though, Gerard Johnson, who worked with Nick Sirianni, so look out for that name.
I love that Brian Johnson, Jalen Hurts, they've known each other since Hurts was 5. It's like, one, I can't even remember when I was 5. Two, were they close at all? Or were they just like, I just met you for one time when you were 5 and then checked in when you were 12?
He played high school for Hurts' father.
Right.
That's what
It's a loose connection.
Yeah.
It clearly didn't work.
Didn't work.
After a year of being the
It
OC.
didn't work.
It only went so far.
It didn't work. This one, although on the other side of the ball, I will say this, and this is annoying to me because obviously I'm a Commanders fan, so I root against the Eagles. I don't hate them the way I hate the Cowboys. But
Annoying to me too as a Giants fan.
Right, but this is right. You're a lifelong Giants fan. So they also obviously Sean Desai has left the team, and they have hired Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio, who was the defensive coordinator of the Miami Dolphins, that falls apart, which is a weird one to me, Connor.
That's a lot to unpack there.
I get it. The defense faltered in the second, last couple of games here, but they were so beat up.
They had no players.
They had no play. Like, you can't play.
I think this
it's Vic Fangio's fault that Bradley Chubb, broke his leg or whatever.
Jalen Phillips.
Right.
Yep. Ramsey was gone the first couple months of the season.
Xavier Howard was gone.
Yeah.
This was pretty clearly he wanted out.
Yeah, something with relationships with the players and stuff like that. But for the Eagles, you couldn't defensively. You can't go nowhere else but up. When Vic Fangio was a defensive consultant for them in the 2022 season, they had the best pass rush in the league. That was non-existent this season, so it can only be a plus for the Eagles.
I also think that it was, look, they got destroyed by the Chiefs in the playoffs, but also impressed with what Fangio did in that game. Just like, all right, we're just going cover 0. Just like, we're screwed anyway.
Yeah,
let's create some variance. Maybe some chaos will happen. I thought that was a smart approach. It just didn't work as much.
Honestly, they should have been blown out much more than they. Given how injured they were, and the fact that it's this warm weather team going to the frozen tundra of Kansas City. They should have been. They held them to a lot of field goals in that game. I actually thought the defense played pretty well there. So super weird that Fangio left Miami. I think he's being blamed for stuff that isn't his fault. But as a Commanders fan, I'm super annoyed because I think Vic Fangio is one of the best defensive coordinators in the game.
Yep.
And so I'm annoyed that he's going to Philadelphia. To your point, Lawrence, nowhere to go but up for this Eagles defense. They need to get some players. Vic Fangio can only do so much, but and they need to get healthier. But I think this is a great hire for Philadelphia on the defensive side of the ball.
And as good of a regular season that Miami had, if you're Mike McDaniel, you can only shake up that side of the ball so many times before the finger starts to come all the way around to the hires you made and the dysfunction. I know Miami had a good year, but it felt like it came to a shocking, disappointing end, and this is a weird breakup.
McDaniel's definitely on the hot seat next year.
Right.
Between, I understand Skylar Thompson against Buffalo last year, but like they couldn't get the plays in against Buffalo in the playoffs, and then just to completely melt down in those final 3 games. They lost 56-19 to the Ravens, and again, it was for the 1 seed.
I mean, listen. They with 5 games to go, they were 3 games up in the AFC East to win the division, and they missed the playoffs.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, 3 games up with 5 to go, and they missed the playoffs.
Well, they lost the division.
They lost
the division. Sorry,
the
they
Bills,
lost
Which ultimately cost them any chance in the playoffs.
cost them the chance to playoffs.
Yeah, because them playing in Miami and them playing in Kansas City would have been
Game over.
completely different for that team. And I'll say this though, Jay. I'll say if they somehow miss the playoffs next year, the Dolphins, then we talking about something.
Exactly.
But my point is they had a chance to host at least one playoff game, and instead they had to go on the road to Kansas City in the freezing cold as well. And obviously, like they didn't, except for Dallas, they didn't beat any winning team with a winning record, right? I mean, or any team that was considered quote unquote good.
Yep.
All the sort of big games they kind of got blown out there, and after the playoff loss, were the Cowboys even an elite team?
Yeah, and the Cowboys also got blown out by every team that was good.
Right.
Well, they was blown out by the Niners and the Bills, and the Dolphins had to squeak across the line.
Guys, there's 4 good teams. They're playing on Sunday.
That's right. And before we get to those 2 games, in just one moment, one last piece of coaching news since we've been off the air. The Raiders finalized their deal to hire Antonio Pierce, formerly the interim head coach. He becomes the official head coach. Good move by the Raiders. Everybody loves to see it, especially Max Crosby, apparently. Raiders also hired former Chargers GM Tom Telesco to be their new GM. That's the interesting one.
I love the tweeting about how Tom Telesco had accumulated so much talent in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Like, this team underperformed constantly over his reign.
Yeah.
For decades.
They do have some talent.
Yep.
They just underperformed.
So,
I think you had to, I think it was kind of a no-brainer to bring back Pierce. 1, because Max Crosby, your best player, was going to demand the trade. 2, just that defense turned into a top 2 unit the second half of the season when it was routinely picked to be a bottom 10 defense going into the year, and to get that out of that unit was incredibly impressive.
Really impressive, and we'll see what happens with the offense. But clearly, it seems like if Josh Jacobs comes back, or if he does not, Zamir White, whoever is like Antonio Pierce wants a run-heavy approach. Wants to run the ball and play good defense, and so the starting running back of the Raiders will be very interesting and fantasy relevant next year. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.